shocked. Many young women in China live on the streets, and sleeping under bridges is a luxury. The top 10 Chinese cities with the most protests due to economic reasons. How miserable are the Chinese people living? The stories below also give us a panoramic view of the ordinary working class in China. These people account for 40 to 50% of the Chinese population. They are struggling with a hard life and do not have any support from the Chinese Communist Party government. In Nanjing, a divorced woman raised 3 children by herself. In order to earn living expenses, she tied her son to her body and sold fried rice at a construction site. Her name is Fei Fei, and she is a child who grew up in her father's takeaway truck. Dad takes her with him to deliver food every day, no matter if it rains or winds. Dad tells himself every day to drive slower and to bring Fei Fei home safely at night. When he meets a client who lives in a high-rise building, his father always carries Fei Fei upstairs. When he meets a client who lives on the ground floor, his father asks Fei Fei to wait by the car. After taking a few steps, his father looks back to make sure that Fei Fei is safe. Fei Fei learned to cook and wash clothes by herself at a young age. It is true that a poor child has become the master of the family. Netizens were very distressed after seeing this. Someone wants to adopt her. Some people are angry and think it is a tragedy of the times. She is 19 years old. Due to family difficulties, she had to drop out of school and help her mother sell sesame seeds on the street. She gets up at 3 o'clock every day and works 12 hours. She said she also envies her peers who can go out and play, but she has no choice. She said she has no dreams. When asked, if you get married in the future, will you come back to help your mother? With tears on her face, she nodded and said, yes. Her mother revealed that she had divorced her husband and was raising her 2 daughters alone. One daughter is disabled and has to be taken with her wherever she goes. She said that her daughter feels distressed when she comes out to work at such a young age, but she has to do whatever she can to help her. Her only wish is to raise her 2 daughters. Difficult living conditions are not the biggest difficulty for these people struggling at the bottom. In order to increase her income, the mother of 3 in Nanjing wanted to run a night market at night. But the first time she went, the table was confiscated, and she was asked not to sell fried rice again. With her livelihood cut off, she was sent to the hospital in a panic. The poor child cried loudly as he watched his mother being carried away. China's economy is sluggish, and many people are in trouble and struggling to survive. A large number of college students are unemployed after graduation and live on the streets. Many young women even sleep in bridge caves, but are evicted. The most realistic scenes of the Chinese people's survival make people cry. The top 10 Chinese cities with the most protests due to economic reasons. The Xi'an network, established by the overseas human rights organization Freedom House in November 2022, recently released a research report on protests in China in the second quarter of this year, listing the top 10 cities with the most protests due to economic reasons. 6 of them are in Guangdong province, and Shenzhen, where the most protests occurred, has at least 306 protests. The Xi'an network, established by the overseas human rights organization Freedom House, recently released an analysis report on Chinese civil assemblies and protests. The top 10 cities with the most protests due to economic reasons are Shenzhen, Xi'an, Sanya, Dongguan, Zhengzhou, Zhuhai, Qingdao, Zhongshan, Guangzhou, and Huizhou. Shenzhen ranks first, with at least 306 protests in the past 2 years. The second most is Xi'an, with 233 protests in the past 2 years. Lan Shu, a current affairs commentator living in the United States, said, Guangdong and Jiangsu are the 2 provinces with the largest GDP production capacity in China. The scale of the economic rights protection struggle in Guangdong province is so huge, which shows 2 aspects. The first is that China's export-oriented economy has been severely impacted. From another level, it reflects the difficult situation that the entire Chinese economy is currently facing. 6 of the top 10 cities are in Guangdong province. Commentators believe that Guangdong has a large number of migrant workers, and the government's administrative regulations on them are particularly severe. Huang Pengxiao, a former Taiwan National Assembly representative and political commentator, said, "Now, if there are fewer and fewer job opportunities, and there are many companies, especially some Chinese companies, that often do not provide due compensation in accordance with relevant Chinese labor regulations, when they end their business, some companies even fail to pay their wages. Under this situation, of course, it will cause a lot of dissatisfaction among workers and various protests." The protests recorded on Xi'an.com with photos or videos as evidence include the strike of workers at Jingyan KJ Technology Co., Ltd., in Kofco Industrial Park, Xi'an Street, Baoan District, Shenzhen, on June 13, 2024. They protested the company's decision to move the factory to Zhongshan, but refused to compensate the workers. Huang Pengxiao. In fact, in China, wage arrears are a very serious and common phenomenon. In other words, some bosses really have broken their capital chain, lost their business, and they themselves have almost nothing. So some are forced to owe wages, and some are owed wages very badly, which is one of the reasons for the most dissatisfaction. Freedom House launched a research project to systematically collect, organize, and analyze Chinese rallies and protests 2 years ago. It collected samples of protests in 500 prefecture-level cities in China and conducted research from many aspects, such as the methods, characteristics, and causes of protests. Analysis reports are regularly published on overseas dissident websites. There is also a lot of information that cannot be released because of public opinion control, which the outside world cannot know. Lanshu. Many protests by the people are not reported unless they reach a certain scale, so this number is definitely much smaller than the actual number of protests that have occurred. Huang Pengxiao. Because China has very strict control over the flow of information, it is impossible to effectively connect and count information between many regions. The commentary pointed out that whether the protesters are owed wages or have housing problems, their economic interests and life safety are directly affected, so they have to protest. Huang Pengxiao. This shows that some economic problems facing China today cannot be covered up. Of course, this is a very unfortunate thing for many Chinese workers and office workers. The most important thing is not a temporary or individual phenomenon, but maybe an overall and long-term phenomenon. The commentary believes that if Guangdong is so serious, it is conceivable that there are many other provinces. Layoffs and unemployment. Can't survive. Chinese online communities cry out. From changing the youth unemployment rate standard to relaxing the identification standard for recent graduates, the Chinese Communist Party authorities have frequently acted to cover up the soaring unemployment rate. However, the truth will come out. Recently, topics related to unemployment have become popular on Chinese online social platforms, attracting widespread attention and resonance from netizens. Recently, many Chinese netizens have posted or shared short videos on social platforms such as Douyin, WeChat, Kuaishou, and Xiaohongshu, expressing distress over company layoffs, difficulty finding jobs, or complaints about workplace injustice and life's challenges. According to Radio Free Asia, on Monday, November 4th, a woman who had just lost her job posted a video on Douyin, crying about her experience. She said she went to work happily in the morning, but unexpectedly, her boss held an emergency meeting in the afternoon and told everyone that today's work would end here. It is said that many large companies are laying off employees in 2024, but she hadn't expected to be among those laid off. "I'm unemployed, I may not be able to survive," the 30-year-old woman said to the camera with tears in her eyes. "I have parents above and children below. How should I go forward?" Another college graduate from Wuhan posted a video on WeChat saying he had been unemployed for more than 4 months. To keep his family from knowing about his unemployment, he had been pretending to go to work and sitting in the library daily, doing nothing. "I get up at 7 o'clock every morning and go to the library by 8, but it's difficult to find a seat by then," the young man said to the camera. You may not believe how many people like me are pretending to work in the library. I think pretending to go to work is not an escape, but a way to keep life as it was when I had a job. Wang Haihong, a 50-year-old netizen, posted a video describing his hardships. He said he came to Shanghai from a small town in Jiangsu 27 years ago to work. After years of unrelenting efforts, he bought a house and a car, started a family, and built a career. Now, at over 50, he was suddenly laid off by his company. The uncertainty of the future feels like a mountain, making him feel lost. In recent years, China's unemployment rate has remained high. The youth unemployment rate, for those aged 16 to 24, which has attracted much public attention, reached 21.3% in June 2023. Afterward, the Beijing authorities announced they would suspend the release of this data and revise the statistical standards before resuming data publication. However, the rate was still as high as 18.8% in August, setting a new high this year. Regarding the phenomenon of soaring youth unemployment, the National Bureau of Statistics of the Communist Party of China explained in an earlier statement, "The negative impact of current changes in the external environment is intensifying. Domestic demand remains insufficient, and economic recovery still faces many difficulties and challenges." In mid-September this year, a 24-year-old man with a master's degree in physics, after being unable to find a job for a long time, lowered his standards to apply for a handyman position at the Suzhou-affiliated Middle School of Nanjing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics, where he was hired. After the news spread, it sparked widespread discussion in Chinese online communities. In response to China's persistently high unemployment rate, senior financial commentator Kai Shenkun admitted in an interview with Radio Free Asia on November 4th that China's unemployment problem has not yet reached its worst. "I think the unemployment problem will become more and more serious," he said. He added that now is not the time for the government to invest money to stimulate the economy and save enterprises. Enterprises are unwilling to invest now, and there are no better investment channels. How can private enterprises talk about development?